All right. All right. All right. All right. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you had a good weekend. I had a really good weekend. I went to New York this weekend. I went to a Mets game. We won 11-1, the biggest win I've ever been at Citi Field. And I got to be honest with you, this is going to sound weird, but I just have to say it. You know, I was there at Citi Field, and I bought tickets, after the season was basically already over. The team stinks, that kind of thing. And so I was able to get really good seats for really cheap. And so we're sitting field level, and I just, when I was there, I'm there with my kids, I'm there with my wife, and my son, we went for batting practice, and my son got to go watch batting practice right up against the fence, and one of the players gave him a ball, signed it for him, and stuff like that. It was just a really cool experience, and I remember being at the field when I was a kid for the very first time, and it was just so magical. Everything looked so awesome. But I had a moment just thinking to myself, just how good God is, how faithful God is, because the last time I was in Citi Field, well, maybe not the last time, because I had my wife at the last time I was at Citi Field, but when I used to go to Citi Field a lot, when I was a real degenerate, I could not imagine. It would not have even have entered my mind that I would be going to Citi Field with not even one son, not two sons, not three sons, but four sons for the first time. And being like my father was when he took me to Shea Stadium for the first time, and just having a really good time, and not seeing how drunk I could get, at the game, and that kind of stuff, like not worrying about any of that stuff, just being there, enjoying my family. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. I never would have thought in a million years that I'd have any sons, much less four, and be at the same place in the same stadium, sitting very close to where I used to sit. When I used to not care about money, I'd spend money. It didn't matter how much the tickets cost back then. But just totally awesome. What an amazing thing. And then the next day, we went to the Bronx Zoo, and the kids, of course, they love animals, and just had a great time. And so everything was wonderful there. Unfortunately, though, I picked up some kind of a bug when I was there. That's one of the downsides of New York City. There are some downsides in New York City. And so I was a little sick. And actually, I was supposed to be on this podcast with John Harris, Stephen Wolf, William Wolf, Nate Fisher, and Josh Abotoy. Abotoy? I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. Sorry, Josh, if you see this. About the G3 controversy with Christian nationalism. I was supposed to be on there as well. I decided not to do it because I got all stuffy, and, at the end of the day, you start to feel really run down and stuff like that. And I want to save my energy because I'm going to be at the TruthScript conference this weekend, John Harris's conference in New York, and I'm going to be speaking. So I want to save my energy for that. I'm really looking forward to that. I really am. And I think my talk will be funny and interesting and all that kind of thing. So I did not participate in this, but I did want to add my 2 cents to a little bit of it here. Do yourself a favor and watch this. If you have paid attention to the G3 and Christian nationalism controversy, I think you would really get a lot of value out of watching this, because this is a real good retelling of how this all went down, and how even to this day, like, we don't want to fight these guys. We really don't. And it's very clear that they want to fight us, and there's a lot of hatred from their side. And I do mean hatred. I mean, they're trying to destroy many of us. Some of us are getting more of the treatment than others, but they've treated us like enemies for a long time. And it's really not about they even said this in the video yesterday. It's not really about them so much as it is when you do this, you start calling Stephen Wolf a kinist, and he's not. By the way, if you think Stephen Wolf sounds like a kinist, you should watch this video. I mean, it's just so, if you just sit down and talk to somebody, you find out lots of things about them. And in this video, Stephen Wolf says that he's actually convinced people out of kinism through his work and through his conversations and things like that. That doesn't really sound like something a kinist would be proud of doing or would even attempt to do. But, Stephen talks about that here. It's not something that he brags about. It's not something that he wants to be known for, but it's something that happens. And it's just like, if you just sit down and talk to someone, you find out that what G3 has done has just, it is so unbecoming of a Christian, much less a Christian leader, much less a Christian leader who touts themselves for being so mature and all this kind of thing. It's really a sad thing that G3 has decided to do this kind of thing. But I recommend that you watch this because, all of the super scary things that Josh Bice and some of these guys that have brought up, the secret society, they've got a secret society and they're part of it, and they promote violence. And you just listen to Nate, Fisher talk about this, and he's just sitting there. He's very calm, and he's like, there's nothing secret about this society. I mean, here's what we do at it. Here's what we're aiming for. Nobody promotes violence, but he was talking about violence because historically, the position the United States is in, oftentimes leads to violence and is already leading to violence. There's violence in our country right now. It's political violence. And we're not saying that's a good thing. We're just saying, you ought to be prepared for that. If you're a smart person, you ought to be prepared for that. I know I'm trying to prepare for that. Like, I don't want to see it, right? Like, I don't want to see any violence. I'm not inviting any violence my way. God willing, I never see it. My kids never see it. But I'm doing my best to prepare myself for that. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say what I'm doing because that's kind of irrelevant, but it is on my mind what happens if there's, widespread political violence in the United States. If you haven't asked yourself that question, then I would, and you're a man, you have a family, I would argue that you're a fool if you haven't even considered what that would mean for you and your family, how to prepare for that, right? I don't want to fight. And I've said this many times on the channel. I'm the kind of guy that does not want to fight, but I will. I'm not scared to. I don't want to do it, but I will. That's the thing. And so, like, I've often wondered, like, and I went to New York, like I said, the other day, and maybe this is why I think about these things, and just kind of so naturally, because when I was in New York, I used to be in situations where sometimes I'd wonder, is this the right neighborhood? That kind of thing. What would I do if I was approached? How would I handle it? Like, what would be my thought process there? And I've thought about these things many times in my life. I'm the kind of guy that does not go around picking fights, looking for fights, things like that. But if you are intent on fighting me, I will oblige you. It's as simple as that. I don't want to fight, but I will. And I will do my best to win. That's the point. And so there's just so much of those moments in this video. I recommend it because if you've heard, Stephen, it sounds scary what Stephen Wolf said. Stephen Wolf said that the civil governing authority should execute heretics. And, then you find that sounds really scary to Americans, modern Americans. And what you find if you read the book, but also if you just listen to what he says online or in this video, for example, it's like, no, I mean, I believe in principle that it would be allowable for the civil governing authority to have a place in enforcing the first table of the law. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that you could read or in the Reformed tradition that you could read that would be like, no, they don't. I don't even know what that would be. Like you can't point to a scripture that says the government is not allowed to punish evildoers when it comes to the first table law. You won't find that. You might find something like that in modern legal theory, but you're not going to find that in the scripture. You're not going to find that in the Protestant tradition. John Calvin, the genius. Everyone agrees John Calvin's a genius. He agrees that the civil governing authority could have a place in enforcing the first table of the law. So Stephen says, I agree with the reformers. There's nothing weird about that. Stephen agrees with the reformers. And then he says, but in our modern context, I don't know how prudent that would be. So in theory, I think in principle, sure. But today, would I want to hand over to the government today the ability to enforce the first table of the law? Obviously not. Were the situation different? Would I be for it? Maybe. It all depends. And so So Stephen Wolf doesn't quite sound so scary when you actually let him speak for himself. But then you got these guys, Owen Strawn and Josh Bice, and these guys that are just they ignore all that. It doesn't matter what he says about that. It says, no, he wants to start executing Baptists. That's what he wants to do. We've been down this road before. He's going to execute the Baptists. Look at this scare quote. And they'll pull up a quote where he says, I'm not a Baptist, so I'm not going to really try to reconcile what I say with what Baptists believe. It won't make any sense for me to do that. I'm not a Baptist. See, he's against Baptists. You see? See, this is not for Baptists. Now, it's not really what I said at all. I just said I'm not a Baptist, so why would I write for Baptists? It's when you let the man speak for himself, it's just really not that scary. And so you can find, none of this is new information, like the stuff that Nate and Stephen talk about here, and William Wolf as well. None of this is new information. If you just let them speak for themselves, you've heard this before. But I don't know of a single place where all of the scare tactics of G3, all the hysterical, pearl clutching, dress wearing scare tactics of the G3 crew, all of them have been just completely diffused in one place. So if you know anybody that's falling for the G3 hysteria, send them this video. It addresses so much of it in one place. It's really good. I appreciate John for doing this video, for putting this all together. I know he puts a lot of work into organizing these things, and it's no easy task to get Stephen, William, Nate, Josh, all of them together at once. I was supposed to be on here, like I said, but I'm actually, in a way, I'm glad I wasn't. I think that hearing from these guys in particular, because these guys have bore the brunt of the attacks, in my opinion. William, Nate, and Josh, and Stephen Wolf. I've not really been attacked that much. I think they don't really view me as a threat in any way, which I'm totally fine with. I don't have a big head about my influence. You know what I mean? Like I have an influence over certain areas and certain people, but it's not widespread. I don't have major influences, so I'm okay with that. But I did have interactions with some of these people, and John wanted me to talk about that on this video, and so I figured I'd just talk about it on this video. So do yourself a favor. Watch John Harris's Conversations That Matter. It's called Breakdown of the G3 and Christian Nationalism Controversy. It is really good. And send this to people that are being influenced by these guys. Oh, it's so scary. He's a Kenneth. He's a Kenneth and a false teacher. That's what... I have a feeling that the fireworks are going to get really intense at the G3 little conference thing that they've got going on. They're going to probably call some people false teachers and evil wolves, things like that. They're going to ratchet up the rhetoric because they're not thinking through this logically. They're not thinking through this as brothers. They think we are the enemy. And that actually brings me to my very first thing. I had a side conversation with Owen Strawn early on in the controversy. It was all about the white evangelical tweet. And I walked away from that conversation knowing full well that Owen Strawn was on a holy war. It was as if he heard directly from God himself that Stephen Wolf is an evil, racist, white supremacist, all these things. And no matter what anybody said, it didn't matter. He was on a seek and destroy mission. Owen Strawn told me word for word, in hysterical fashion, hysterics, that if I didn't see how dangerous and evil and racist the white evangelicalism is the lone bulwark tweet was, that I didn't understand the gospel. It didn't matter that if I agreed with it or not. That was irrelevant to Owen. Like whether I agreed with Stephen Wolf's tweet about the white evangelicals being the lone bulwark for moral sanity in America, based on voting records and things like that. That's what the tweet was about. He didn't ask me if I believed that tweet or not, or if I agreed with it or not. That was irrelevant to him. In fact, I told him, I don't know, it didn't really seem like a big deal to me. I mean, do I agree with it? I don't know. I mean, it depends on what he means. That didn't matter. The very fact that I wasn't lining up to condemn him over it was enough for Owen to know that I did not understand the gospel. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. He didn't know if I didn't understand the gospel, but he questioned. He wasn't sure if I understood the gospel if I wasn't lining up to get as hysterical about it as he was. If I didn't think it was as huge a deal as he did, then I probably, maybe he didn't know, I didn't understand the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's how this guy is. He's lost his mind. And I walked away from that tweet. It didn't matter what Stephen said or the clarifications. It didn't matter if you wanted to be nuanced about it. None of that. He was on a holy war. This was a crusade for him, and nothing was going to stop him. Stephen Wolfe must be destroyed. That was his opinion. And anyone who did not join him on that quest, if you even dared to consider what Stephen was saying there and you didn't immediately condemn it, because how many times did we get insisted you need to condemn this? If you didn't immediately jump on that, you're in question now. You might not understand the gospel. I mean, I'll give him that. He didn't say I definitely didn't understand the gospel, but he said, I don't know if you do. I don't know if you do, AD. You might need to get saved because you didn't condemn Stephen Wolfe's tweet the way I did. Unbelievable. That conversation was a disaster. It was a short conversation. It was on Twitter. Afterwards, he blocked me, that kind of thing. And, it was just crazy. It was just an absolutely crazy conversation. I also had a conversation with Virgil Walker. And that conversation went better. It was a longer. Maybe it was because it was on the phone. It wasn't a text conversation. Those are always better. But it did not go well. But it went better than my Owen conversation. And in the Virgil Walker conversation, to give you an idea of the tenor of this, the way it started was he asked me if I was recording it, and it's like, what? We're friends. I thought we were friends. What are you talking? Am I recording it? Makes me wonder if he was recording it, But we had this conversation, and it's just like, again, it just didn't matter. Like, there were times in that conversation when he would tell me, Stephen Wolfe, he's like essentially an evil genius. He says things in just the right way where it's plausible that he's not evil, racist, kinist, white supremacist, ethnocentric, whatever it is. But he really is. He's signaling them. He's signaling the white supremacist, kinist, racist, whatever. And I said, Virgil, like, if he's an evil genius, then he's signaling in just the right ways where it's plausible that he could be okay. Why are you saying that he's definitely not? Why is he automatically the racist? Why does it default to racism? He's a believer. He's a brother in the Lord. Like, what is the deal? He said, well, you see, that's the thing. You see, because he was a little sloppy. It's a sloppy book. And I don't remember if I said this to Virgil or if I just thought it. I can't remember because I didn't record the conversation, and I wasn't. It's very tiresome to be dealing with people that, you should be friends with, but they think you're an enemy. I said, but which is it? Is he a genius or is he sloppy? Because at different points in this conversation, he's like this uber genius, puppet master. And then it's a very sloppy book. I remember I told him, I said, look, I had a hard time reading this book. I told Virgil this. I said, this is not my kind of thing. Like, I'm not a scholar. I don't pretend that I am. I know I'm an intelligent guy. I know that. Listen, my IQ's been tested. You know what I mean? But I'm not. I don't get off on reading scholarly works. Like, that's just not my thing. I don't find it fun. It's just not interesting to me. I can read them, but sometimes they take me a little time. Reading Stephen's book took me some time. I mean, it's difficult reading. It's not. First level reading, And I said, you ever thought that maybe, like, you just don't get it? Hasn't even crossed his mind. Hasn't even crossed his mind. No, he's got Stephen Wolfe perfectly figured out. He's a genius, but he's sloppy and all these. And it's just like, I was not talking to someone thinking through this rationally. I'm not saying that Virgil is not a rational person. He is. I happen to think Virgil's extremely intelligent. On this issue, he's not thinking as carefully as he normally does. And you can see it in the podcast, that one comment about Mayberry. Were there any black people in Mayberry? He sounded just like, what's his face? With the crazy hair. What's his name? forget these characters' names. I don't even think about the woke church anymore. I'm just totally done with it. Who's the guy that started working with Ibram Kendi X? Jamar Tisby. That's the kind of comment Jamar Tisby would make. Oh, was there any black people in Mayberry? It's like, dude, what happened to you? Nothing happened to him. He's the same guy he always was. But when this issue comes to bear, he sounds just like the woke church. And he uses the same tactics as the woke church, and the same rhetoric as the woke church, and the same logic as the woke church, which is to say, there is none. There is none. And so, yeah, I had 2 conversations, and I remember, Virgil uninvited me to G3. He had initially invited me, and then he uninvited me. It's just very weird. It's just very strange stuff. And it's like, we didn't start this fight. We didn't. You guys did. You guys started this fight. And it's just really crazy. I mean, and I think one of the things that I think it's very clear in this conversation, every person in this conversation, Stephen, William, Nate, Josh, John, we see this thing repeating itself. And it's like, you attack us, and that's fine. We're used to it by now. If we used to get our feelings hurt by it, we really don't anymore. It's just not that big a deal when you cancel or attempt to cancel a guy like Nate Fisher or Stephen Wolf or William Wolf or me or John. It's just not, we don't really care anymore. You know what I mean? Or maybe we never did. But the problem is, and where we really kind of do have a little bit of an emotional investment, is we see the damage that what you say has collaterally on the local church. Owen Strawn saying, if your pastor's been brainwashed into saying this kind of stuff. And of course, it's always vague in general, so you don't really quite know who he's talking about. And what the effect that has, this is something that Nate pointed out, and I've pointed out many times on the channel. When you don't name names and you just kind of generally say, the evil kinist out there, the kinism, white supremacy. And it's like, the effect it has is casting shade on the entire group. And so now, if you have a pastor who's been brainwashed by kinism and white ethnocentrism, you got to leave your church. You might have to leave your church and strongly confront him. And what we see happening is that's going to happen in the local church. Pastors who are honest men, good men, they start talking about things that sound a little too Christian nationalism-y. They're going to start to get accused of kinism, racism, things like that, just like in Woke War I. And we know how damaging that was to people, man, in the first woke wars. We know the pain it caused for so many people. Not us. Not us. Other people. Other people. During Woke War I had a good church, you know what I mean? And there was some pain in my story, too, no question about it. No question about it, early on anyway. But as the war went on, I had a solid church, a supportive pastor, totally unwoke, that kind of thing. It was great. We saw the damage it did on the local church level. In G3, you claim to be for the local church, and you're allowing this pettiness, this unwillingness to let us speak for ourselves, unwilling to engage us really on the issues, all while pretending that you are engaging the issues. This hysterical, it's woke stuff that you're doing. Oh, it's racist, this all this stuff. You're letting this damage the local church by your sloppiness, by your vague accusations, your conspiracy theories, guys. You've embarrassed yourselves so much. I don't know that Haywood guy, and I don't care, but Nate Fisher in this video, the whole thing about the Haywood conspiracy theory with the secret society. Ooh, it's a secret society. Nate Fisher just demolishes you very easily. There's nothing secret about it. Here's what it is. Here's what we're doing. This is what people used to have back in the day, and we're doing it again because we need that fraternity. We need that brotherhood. We need to talk through these issues. Guys, your credibility is just, with any thinking person, with the people that aren't, they're not captivated by our little spell. It's you're dragging it through the mud, man. You're dragging your own credibility through the mud. I don't think there's any stopping it at this point. I think this G3 conference is going to be the beginning of the end for you guys. You guys are going to go thermal nuclear on people like me and stuff like that. And it's a sad thing to see. You guys don't have to do that. You don't have to do that to yourselves. You don't have to you guys are a good group. And you're just going to throw it all away for a holy war, smoking out the racists. I mean, this is the same thing over and over. Everything's repeating itself. Everything's repeating itself. But anyway, I just wanted to add my 2 cents there. That's all I really wanted to add. Do yourself a favor and watch this video, breakdown of the G3 and Christian nationalism controversy. If you've had any questions about things that Stephen has said, or William or Nate, or people are using the Josh Bice weird conspiracy theory, oh, it's so scary, they're calling for violence, and they believe that, just send them this video. Say, do me a favor, brother, watch. It's an hour long, hour and a half long. Watch this video, because this addresses all the main points. Very simple, very easy, and it's not what you've been told it is. G3 has lied to you. G3 has borne false witness. It's not about disagreements. Every single person here, not only can they handle honest disagreements, but they welcome it, because these issues need to be hashed out. These issues need to be discussed. They need to be refined. We need an honest challenge. There have been some good challenges to Stephen Wolf's stuff that I think are going to eventually help refine some of this stuff. But unfortunately, none of those have come from G3. G3 has done nothing but put forward the most childish, the most pathetic, the most sad little hysterical arguments that you could possibly freaking imagine. G3 has put them forward. Doesn't have to be that way, and I could not recommend this video more. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. I will see you in the next one. God bless.